Hi there, my name is Hannah Bagley, and today I will be presenting on Jeff Vandermeer's novel Annihilation. Vandermeer uses the perspective of a character who does not fear the end of the world as we know it, and with the creation of the fictional world of Area X, he is suggesting that maybe we should embrace a more ecologically equal world rather than focusing on rejecting it. By using the branch of eco-horror, human nature blending, Vandermeer is tapping into humans' fear of losing their place in the hierarchy of nature. Humans have placed themselves at the very top, so to lose that spot where we feel we have the most control is something that we fear immensely. He has chosen to use the perspectives of his characters to combat two opposing ideas that involve anthropocentrism and biocentrism, and questioning whether we should fear or be more comfortable in one or the other. The novel deals heavily with human nature blending, which is the blur between humans and the non-human. The photo here is depicting a person who has, quote-unquote, blended with nature. The flowers around them have taken over their identity, and they have melded with the flowers that surround them. In Vandermeer's novel, there are numerous instances in which this blend is referenced. One of these instances involves a painfully human eye of a dolphin. This is a moment where the characters question whether anything in Area X is truly what it seems. Vandermeer continuously uses details to focus specifically on nature dominating humans, in order to question our fears about it. In the fictional world of Area X, human activity has been completely wiped out. This has allowed for the environment to thrive. The only human activity that Area X receives comes from the expeditioners who are sent beyond the border to study the landscape. Most of these expeditioners do not exit Area X alive. Rather, all of their findings are left in a lighthouse that sits in the middle of the landscape. Those who do exit, however, never exit fully human. Area X tends to infect humans and forces them to blend with its biosphere. And by lacking this human presence, Area X challenges the comfort that humans have in an anthropocentric world. Anthropocentrism is the idea that all living things exist only to serve human interests. The binary opposition to this will be biocentrism, which is the idea that the environment is more centric than human needs. In the picture depicted on the left, we can see what the quote-unquote wrong category would be, and that's anthropocentrism, which is essentially the world that we live in now. Humans are at the top of the hierarchy. Nothing can touch them, not even whales, which those are much stronger and much larger than us. On the right side, however, we can see that a biocentric world looks like a circle, where everything works together and nothing is at the top of the chain, rather they are all in equal standing. This would be an ecologically equal world, which is what Area X represents. Vandermeer has pitted these two views, anthropocentrism and biocentrism, against one another by using his characters' perspectives by mirroring that same opposition. He has written the novel in the perspective of the biologist, someone who can no longer say with conviction that Area X is a bad thing. By using her perspective, Vandermeer is suggesting that perhaps accepting an ecological equality may be the path that humans need to steer towards in order to save their anthropocentric world. We as humans have altered and broken down the world around us. While we may not be directly the ones to blame, we have little control over how to fix it. Vandermeer's novel mirrors that of our own world. The world outside of Area X has been exposed to human toxicity, and now Area X is threatening to collide with it. Humans tend to change landscapes drastically, contaminate ecosystems, wipe out species, and engage in practices that are causing the earth to heat up quickly. The world is being harmed and it is hurting. However, on the other hand, Area X is the exact opposite. It is described to have an intense richness in the biosphere and is inherently healthy. The environment thrives, and with a lack of human touch, it continues to do so. These alterations to the natural world experiences are leading humans towards a new world that offers no platform or stability. It does not guarantee safety or survival. This is something that humans naturally fear because so far in our lives we have been able to live careless and carefree, and there is not much to hold us accountable for our actions. Granted, now that there are imminent dangers coming our way, we are seeing that we are going to be held accountable. However, it is still easy to push off these issues and save them for a later generation. Vandermeer is exposing human anxiety about all of this by creating a world that is headed toward ecological equality. He has created a world in which humans lose their spot at the top of the hierarchy, like we talked about before, and rather they are set in the same level as the environment. Area X threatens the comfort that humans have been able to relish in because it is willing to harm the false sense of security that humans have gained from living in an anthropocentric world. Not only would humans feel not superior anymore, but a world like Area X would hold humans accountable for harming the environment. It would not be easy to ignore the issues with the environment as easily because we would be put on the same level as what we are harming. In the novel, the psychologist, the surveyor, and the anthropologist all display this natural fear of that humans have that coincides with a world headed towards human destruction. On the other hand, though, there's the biologist. The biologist becomes an outlier of this group because she does not harbor the same fear. Rather, she is willing to go beyond it and accept it. Vandermeer gives the biologist a post-human neuroatypicality, which pushes her to question whether this human-nature blending and ecological equality that Area X creates is negative or not. The biologist is portrayed as identifying more strongly with ecosystems than with human individuals, which sets her apart from her crewmates and most people. Because of her ability to identify and relate with ecosystems, she is not displayed a human versus Area X mindset like others do. She's experiencing everything as just the biologist, and she does not require any of it to have a deeper meaning. Everything around her is simply something to study. The biologist's love for nature goes back to a young age, and there is a similarity to be drawn between the nature of Area X and an overgrown swimming pool that she got to fawn over as a child. The biologist's attraction to the swimming pool directly correlates to her fascination with Area X because they both have become independent and sophisticated environments that are disconnected from the anthropocentric world. While the swimming pool may be something that serves only human interests, it has been taken over by nature. Therefore, it becomes something that is more biocentric because it does not serve humans anymore. Similarly, Area X once served humans and was part of the anthropocentric world, but now it is something with a mind of its own and is focused solely on nature. The swimming pool traces the biologist's intense love for nature to a young age. It has also allowed her to create a deeper connection with nature and contributes to her more positive outlook of Area X. The ecological equality that the biologist seems so fascinated with comes from the fact that Area X is devoid of natural human life. Humans who enter Area X hardly interfere since they are simply there to observe and take note. However, they end up being forced to mesh with Area X's environment anyway. While the biologist explores the landscape on her own, she finds that there are transformations taking place. Similar to the Eye of the Dolphin, she finds an abandoned village that has a few peculiar eruptions of moss or lichen, and the vegetative matter forms limbs, heads, and torsos. Despite the human abandonment, the biologist finds modified human cells from a dead fox and a piece of the moss. These two instances of human nature blending also confirm that any humans who were once in Area X have now been mixed up with nature. Area X has forced humans to become close to the non-human. The biologist herself experiences this blend with nature firsthand. Upon breathing in spores from the tower, the biologist finds herself beginning to transform, and it leads her further away from being human more than is just part of her post-human neuroatypicality. The spores have granted the biologist autonomy from the psychologist's hypnosis. She has also become more in tune with her senses and is clearly transforming into something that is more than human. Despite the slow transition into something that is not human, the biologist remains calm and focused on the mission rather than her own health, which has been contaminated. On the other hand, though, the anthropologist seems close to working herself into a bout of hysteria when the biologist considers their situation to be interesting. And the continuous mention of the biologist's fascination and devotion to the environment was brought on from a young age. This helps explain her positive outlook on Area X. Area X is contributing to the destruction of an anthropocentric world and is blurring the distinctions between humans and non-human. Even despite hearing news that Area X is expanding out into the real world, the biologist's only response is that she cannot see it as a bad thing. In the eyes of the biologist, someone whose fascination with nature seems to almost blind her, the expansion of an ecologically equal area may be the savior to the world in which we've altered so much. Vandermeer has chosen to not solely focus on the biologist's outlook, though. He portrays those who lack this apathy towards the loss of their security in the anthropocentric setting. It is the view of the other expeditioners who are more in tune with the anthropocentric setting that exposes this heightened fear around the expansion of Area X. These characters, like a typical human, find comfort in the way that the world is. An animated, non-human world would compromise human autonomy and value, and these characters understand that a biologically diverse and non-anthropocentric world would be their final loss of any form of control. Area X has the ability to influence their will and choose actions they would not otherwise endorse. This is enough to strike fear into anyone who is unwilling to allow the environment to choose their fate. It is the idea that nature could cause humans to stop valuing their individual lives and goals that makes Area X invasive, and it intrudes on human comfort. When the psychologist dies, she speaks in a panicked tone that echoes that of the anthropologist from earlier in the novel and juxtaposes the biologist in every way. The psychologist begins to have doubts, saying, "We should have never come here. I should have never come here." This questioning betrays her level-headed leadership position she has held throughout the entire novel, and any idea that she may have been on the same wavelength as the biologist. Her fears are exposed during this scene, and it aligns with the fear that an ecologically equal landscape is expanding, and it represents the loss of human control. The biologist herself has already begun to transform and meld with Area X, which is something that the psychologist and the surveyor have been against. With the spore incident, she becomes much more like the fox and the moss that contain human DNA because the spores have blurred human and non-human distinctions, and the biologist is becoming more of an ecological other. When the biologist and the surveyor meet again, there is a direct argument about the level of humanness that the biologist still contains. The surveyor claims, "You're no longer human anymore, you should kill yourself so I don't have to." This intense fear from the surveyor represents her fear of Area X, just like the psychologist's panic in the final moments did, rather than the fear of the biologist herself. While the biologist has come to terms with her transformation, the psychologist and the surveyor came to fear it and they wanted to destroy it. On one hand, the psychologist attempted to initiate the suicide code, Annihilation. The surveyor took a more direct attempt to try to shoot her dead. The surveyor and the psychologist came to fear the transformation of the biologist. However, she seemed to merely take it in and continue to take each development as information and nothing more. The biologist's mind has survived beyond the point that any other expeditioner had before her. She continues to carry only a complex fascination with the world of Area X. Rather than being dissuaded by Area X's power to break minds, she has continued to have an intense compulsion to know everything. She was merely motivated by observing and gaining knowledge. Even though she had gained the knowledge, she had also been contaminated by the spores. Therefore, she cannot return across the border and instead carries on into Area X despite the loss of her expedition members. The biologist's final moments, she seems calm, as opposed to the psychologist. She did not have any doubts about her choice to spend 4 days writing her journal, which was the novel itself, spoiler alert, and then deciding to follow her husband's ghost. Instead, her parting words were simply, "I am not returning home," and she continued on into Area X. The biologist fears that humans have altered the natural world too much, and perhaps Area X is the punishment for the human environmental destruction. Yet, even with this in mind, she does not react adversely, for she knows there is nothing that she can do. She's become physically connected to Area X and is deeply connected to nature, and therefore she is at peace with the implications of Area X's expansion. The biologist is unable to reject the world of Area X the way that the other people in her expedition were able to. Vandermeer used the perspective of the biologist to emphasize the opposing benefits to a biocentric world and an anthropocentric world. The biologist does not affiliate with the anthropocentric mindset, rather she embraces ecological equality that Area X has to offer. He uses the tension between his characters to question whether we should fear that ecological equality that Area X would bring to an anthropocentric world. He has also used human-nature blending to break down the divide between humans and nature by forcing them to mesh together. By doing this, he has created equality between them. By writing his novel in the perspective of the biologist, a character who does not believe that an ecologically equal world would be negative, he is suggesting that perhaps a world like Area X could be the savior to our altered one. These are the sources that I used for my presentation. The biggest one was the novel, of course. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you again.